Views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday. Hump
Is it?
Day. Yeah.
It's the day after the council meeting.
The councils.
You know, I gave some citizens input last night, and I'm going to quickly go over it. I sent this out as an email, as a special commentary, and it was sent out to the Weekend Flush email list. It also went out to Facebook on our pages at Spindle City Straight Talk and South Coast Media, as well as my personal page and Grew Up in Fall River. And one of the things I thought was funny was, first and foremost, I was the second person who signed on the list. Jesus, using the name Love, using whatever name, signed up first. Now, I know sometimes people consider his statements kind of useless and futile, and they're not worth looking at or dealing with. But you know what? Any way you look at it, it's citizens' input.
He is a citizen.
And he is a citizen. So again, the Nazi-esque tactics of the city council president took a hold, and he didn't even acknowledge them. Well, and that's okay. You know, I mean, granted, a lot of people do not want to hear it, but it is what it is.
Well, many people don't want to hear what the council's got to say either.
Exactly.
So, but the thing is, maybe Council President Kadim was worried about a violation of separation of church and state by allowing to let Jesus talk in a political forum. But you know, look, I mean, this is rapidly becoming an absolute. I mean, this is just inexcusable. What is happening in this city? What has happened in this city for decades? And, you know, the thing that irritates me is nothing is ever done. Nothing. They never, ever, no, you know, no forensic audit, no attempt even to find out exactly where the money is. Again, asking for more time to get data. Well, guess what, clowns? You should have told the two BS artists up there, you don't need a whole bunch of time to get your data together. You presented a budget. You're supposed to have all your expenditures logged. This is not a complicated thing unless you make it so, which you do intentionally, so you can steal money. Rob Peter to pay Paul. Rob Peter to pay Paul. The only problem is, we've been robbing Peter for so long, he's out of money. And every time he runs out of money, you know what we do? We raise Peter's taxes. We raise Peter's fees. And we get more money from Peter until Peter finally flees. And then you wonder why nobody moves into the city of Fall River. When you look at this disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful display, and Steve Long accusing the councilors of being disingenuous because they're actually looking at the numbers. Maybe they don't do anything about them, but they're looking. I'll tell you what disingenuous, in my opinion, is. Last year or so, it was last year because it's early in 17, Mr. Long decided to read statistics about the city of Fall River. Its unemployment rate, the number of people living below the poverty level, figures which, by the way, had been submitted by many people, including me, numerous times. So obviously they weren't paying attention, but he decided to get up there and talk about Fall River and its poverty and its low income. And now he doesn't care. Let's spend all the money, let's brand, and a condescending attitude. Nobody's reached out to me. Well, you know something, Councilor Long? Maybe you should have paid attention to the statistics you read in front of the city council. Maybe those poor people who are working 3 jobs to make $28,000 or $30,000 in the poorest city in Fall River don't have time to call you up. Maybe you thought you were state representative long, and you need the people to tell you. You need people to tell you that putting lipstick on a pig still keeps it a pig? This branding campaign is garbage. You know it. You're branding sawdust. And people don't eat sawdust. So if you open up a sawdust restaurant, I don't care how good you brand it, it's not going to work. And it hasn't worked in Detroit. It hasn't worked in Flint. It hasn't worked in Pittsburgh. It hasn't worked in Gary, Indiana. Those are blue-collar communities, working communities, and the only thing that rebounds those communities is jobs. Look at New Bedford. New Bedford was just on the news for the 2nd year in a row. One of the most dramatic changes in their unemployment rate. Why? Containerized shipping and other things. New Bedford actually took something that Fall River had an opportunity to get. Jobs. But no, you want to talk about, you're the one that's disingenuous. You're a rubber stamp. That's all you are, a rubber stamp. And then the accusatory tone, oh, the people haven't contacted me. Well, you know something? Out of the next breath, you'll say, hey, I got elected to govern. When the people tell you something you don't want to hear. But if they don't contact you, maybe the people thought this is so absurd that nobody in their right mind would support it. So let's not talk about being disingenuous. Disingenuous is one of the prerequisites to apply for the job of politician.
Well, you know, disingenuous is pivotal in this whole government, starting at the 6th floor. I want to raise for my special assistant who's from out of this city, who's an elected official in another town, and I need to give him $5,000. City council says, no. Mayor says, I want it. I'm giving it to him anyways. Transfer the money. And the city council goes, okay, we'll transfer the money. And they transfer the money. Now, many councilors that I spoke to prior to yesterday's meeting said they're going to slam the administration on this. Yeah, you know what the slam was? How can I trust you with money when we said no and you gave it anyways? That was your slam? That was your slam? How about this for a slam? Why don't you do this? Because this is the way it works. Because again, you had the gentleman sitting at the table yesterday who's responsible for what? Who's responsible for a complaint of misused funds leads to discipline in the Fall River Buildings and Grounds Department. And who is responsible for that department? Who? Oh, wait a minute. The gentleman sitting at the table yesterday with the quarterly report that you tabled to give them more time to make sure their lies all line up. Chris Gallagher. But is anyone holding him accountable? You know what? If I misappropriated funds, and I don't care, it says $1,900, that's baloney. You and I all know it. Because guess what? In 1989, 88, 89, 1991, they found how much money, Chip, that they misappropriated? Oh, wait, excuse me. I got to use the Joe Macy School of Proper Etiquette. Misallocated.
Well, no, in this case, Sharon Skills actually testified that she forgot it was employee money. $1.5 million plus, they had to pay us interest. And they had to,
wow.
Yeah, because they had them audited. That was at the one time in the last 30 years that the city of Fall River actually had an accurate accounting of its health care funds.
They didn't pay for it, that's why.
That's right. We paid for it. And Ernst & Young, one of the top accounting firms in the country, and I will tell you and remind you what Jerry McGovern, who was their senior auditor, who had audited the entire state of Tennessee, $1 trillion audit, and was one of the top auditors at Ernst & Young, said, in his first 4 hours in Fall River, when he called me and said, you got to get down here. And I said, what? He said, this is the worst disaster I've ever seen. They have no records. He said, Sharon Skills told me to go over to these file cabinets and dump them on the floor and go through the slips. A city of this size doesn't have their data computerized. Guess what? 1990, that started, that grievance, and I went back 10 years for my computations. And at the end of that arbitration, the city assured the arbitrator, who started out the decision by saying, it is without question that the city of Fall River's finances were in a total state of disarray, and they still are. Because you have the current city administrator asking for more time to get data. Well, what the hell did they think they were down there for? You're not supposed to ask them any tough questions?
But remember,
And you got a CFO and a city administrator, and, well, maybe the CFO doesn't have enough time. She's working for the Diamond School Board. She's working for the Housing Authority. She's working for Swansea. Maybe somebody should tell her what your boss would tell you if you show up for late every day, show up for work late every day, and you tell them, well, you know, I'm working 3 other jobs. You know what he'll say? Well, if you can't get to this job on time, you're not going to have this job.
Exactly.
You know, so beat it. If you don't have enough time to do your job, beat it.
and remember, this is the same person who's our chief financial officer, the one sitting at the table yesterday, who was charged with this fiasco.
Well, I don't know if she did any of the audits personally.
Her
The
name
firm-
is on it.
The firm of Hagen Sahadi, Bruce Haig was at the time that the firm was Hagen Sahadi, and it was Bruce Haig, for the sake of absolute accuracy, the auditor from the company that audited from that company was Bruce Haig. He was the one that testified under oath and said that they didn't do a true audit because there was no data. There's no records. How can you do an audit when nobody's got slips? So what you just do is go, this is how much money we took in, this is how much money we said we spent, so just let's make the numbers fit together, which is why the city loses $1.5 million in 91. And then in 2001, again, another holiday because of misappropriated money, and 5 accounts dormant for 25 years. And I know that the other rubber stamp, somebody got a job, so now I'm a firm advocate that this mayor is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Said that, oh, he asked you what year this was, because I'm sure the next comment he wants to tell everybody is, well, they're talking about
25 years ago.
25 years ago. You're right. And what has changed? If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. We not only repeated it, in the last 25 years, we've turned this into an art form. It's an art form. How this city, they take money, and look at this one, misuse of funds. Now, I'm looking at this paper, and it's really funny because it says, former city project manager Gallagher was named interim director of the newly formed Department of Buildings and Grounds in September, then given a permanent appointment after the departure of Ken Pacheco for his new position in the Fall River School Department. Well, guess what? Kenny went over to the school department, and Gallagher takes money from his department.
Yeah.
So, you know, and nobody in the council,
Nobody even asked about that yesterday.
nobody said that the school department is autonomous. Remember,
Yeah, but-
everybody complains about the school department budgets all the time because by law, they're autonomous.
That's right.
We have numerous things about their health care, but yet this guy can knowingly instruct his employees to put in fraudulent overtime so he can get money from a part that he has absolutely no control over. He is in charge of building and grounds for the city of Fall River. So he did a job for the municipality and took it from the school department. I'm calling out the school committee.
I was going to do the same thing.
Where are you? Where are you? You're going to let this happen? You're
Well,
always whining. You're always whining about money over there. So, and you always want more money. How about when a city grabs your money to pay for overtime for work that they did on their buildings?
Yeah, but remember, Mark Costa was in Florida giving replica medals to the family of a deceased veteran,
Well,
which I applaud. Don't get me wrong.
You're never going to get me to ever say anything about giving a veteran
Nope,
his
never,
due.
never. But you know what?
But obviously, you know, he's. But he's also got a job to do,
That's
and
right.
I'm waiting for all of them. I'm waiting for all the school committee to say something about this.
Well, I
And
actually called them.
disciplinary action. You know what disciplinary? They might give him a pay raise or a new
Yeah,
stipend.
exactly.
For thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I called several school committee members when that story broke in Pravda, and they had no idea. And this was after a school committee meeting. Mr. Mayor, a lie by omission is still a lie. You failed to bring that up with the school committee. Don't you think they should have been able to know about this? Wasn't it your responsibility as chairman of the school committee to inform them? And no, it wouldn't have been a 38 violation, because guess what? It was not expected to come up. It wasn't something that was within the 48-hour time frame. And further, if you're saying that you knew about it, then guess what? You're as complicit. So either way, you're wrong. Either way, you are wrong.
Well, you know.
And I'm going to tell you now, let's look at the mismanagement of money in this city. Okay? Chris Gallagher, at the previous city council meeting, when Steve Long, how disingenuous can you be? Screaming at one side and now toning it on the other, said, how much money do you have? How much money do you have? Well, I only have my No. How much cash do you have? From CDA, CPA, how much cash do you have on hand? And you know what he said? Nothing. Zero. Well, here's where I have a problem. I'm going to read you some numbers. $283,000 this year for Bank Street Armory emergency repairs, which still haven't been done. $33,500 for the Central Fire Station. $104,000 for the North Burial Ground. $185,000 for Oak Grove Cemetery. And $99,000 for the King Philip Mill. That was for the chimney. Total allocation, $704,500. Almost $750,000. And the only amount that we know of for sure is the $99,000 for the chimney. So, where'd the rest of the money go? Nobody seems to know. And you know how you have to find it? Because it's not in Munis, by the way. It's in a report called the Bartholomew Report. Okay? So, if we have almost $750,000 floating around, but we have no money, so much so that we have to take it from the school department without them knowing, tell me this isn't financial malfeasance.
No, because, CJ, remember, Corporation Counsel Joseph Macy said they were engaging in a, quote, legitimate inquiry, unquote. Remember that. And he went on to say, at this point, I'm not sure of what the real facts are, as we are only dealing with allegations from one individual. Well, guess what? Corporation Counsel Macy, you're not a judge anymore.
And he's actually disgraced for the robes he used to wear.
It is not your job right now as the Corporation Counsel, because your job is to be the Corporation Counsel. You are not a judge. You're not going to determine whether these allegations. Someone, an independent entity, should be determining if this is in fact true. I'm sure if this individual put her neck out on the line and gave it all, she's got some proof. And as I said, you know, the career administration is talking about there'll be no discipline. He might even get a stipend for thinking out of the box. Who knows? I mean, you know, this is absurd. And Corporation Counsel Macy says, well, he cautioned us. We've got to be cautious, CJ, because labeling the issue a misappropriation of public funds, and quote, misappropriation is a very specialized legal term that has been well defined and has to be taken very seriously, unquote. Well, you know something? If these allegations are correct, it is a very serious misappropriation, because you went to an entity that is autonomous by law. If these allegations are correct, and I'm not saying that they are, but if they are, a department head knowingly and willfully instructed his employees to log overtime in so they could get funds from another city entity, not for what for actual work done. That way it doesn't show on the city side of the budget. Could that be why we had a surplus of funds? Because we've been picking money. Listen, we've got a 30-year history, 25-year history. They scarfed $1.5 million in 91. They scarfed another million or so dollars in 2001. They had 5 accounts dormant. They got $44,000 they had floating around that was employee money now for we don't know how many years, because I put in a request 6 months ago and asked for it verbally 8 months ago, and still haven't gotten the tracking of how that money, which was not city money, not taxpayer money, but individual employees' money that they paid for their share of the health care. Now, obviously, there was a de facto admission that they paid this because their health care continued. Their health care wasn't terminated because of lack of payment of their portion. During this period of we don't know how long, their Blue Cross was not terminated. So somebody had to know they paid. But amazingly enough, just as that money got put in the employer account and they forgot it was the employee's money, this money got put in the employer accounts and they forgot again. But they didn't really forget, because those people continue with health care. And believe me, if you don't pay your health care premium, they're going to take you off the books as fast as they can.
I have an emergency definition for you. In criminal law, misappropriation is the intentional illegal use of the property or funds of another person or entity for one's own use or other unauthorized purpose, particularly by a public official.
Sounds like that fits to me.
A trustee of a trustee of a trust, an executor or administrator of a dead person's estate, or by any person with the responsibility to care for the fiduciary aspect
I love
an entity.
Fiduciary, I love it. And look up the definition of malfeasance.
Yeah, I know.
And that is a public official entering into misappropriations and misfeasance. And the fact is there are a lot of feasances, and we've covered them all in this city. But look, you, the taxpayer, should be and have to be outraged, because you know something leads to discipline. There'll be no discipline. They made this guy a job. They booted Kenny over to the school department. And what's Kenny's job over there? What's his job?
Chief Operating Officer.
Chief Operating Officer, yeah, which means he's also has to oversee their maintenance and building and grounds, because he's the chief. You know, he's the Chief Operating Officer, COO. So, and Kenny's familiar with this, but, they take money from everywhere, and that's the problem. You see, the city, they say, be very careful, because politicians are very careful. They make sure they write laws that give them an opportunity not to be prosecuted. How many speakers of the House have we seen lately let out of the chambers in handcuffs in Massachusetts and Rhode Island? It's very difficult to finally get them. This is why it takes years, because the way they write laws, they're not responsible. But can you run your house this way? Let me ask you if you can run your house, because this is what he did. The school department's a separate entity. So now you wanna do something in your house, and you got some workers, and you say, okay, well, you know something, you're gonna have to work overtime, but I'm gonna pay you for overtime. But I want you to put the overtime in at my neighbor's and get paid by him. Can you do that? We shift around money like it's Chinese checkers in this city. That's not the way a budget's supposed to be run. This is why we need a full and independent forensic audit. This is not the way cities that are financially stable run their city. Look at the Newton budget. You think Newton allows the water department to steal money from the fire department, and the fire department to steal money from the public health department? No. You look at their budget. They have a budget. They say exactly what they're going to do for that year, and they're held accountable for that budget. They run out of money. They got a lot of splaining to do, Lucy, because You don't get any more money unless it's something unexpected. They have a list of what they planned to do last year, what they didn't do, and why they didn't do it, what they did do, the cost. This is a city that actually runs their budget. And you never see somebody in Newton. I'm going to tell you how long the city administrator in Newton would last if every time they went up there, they went, oh, I got to come back. Let's table this. I need another 2 weeks to make up numbers. I don't have enough data. Well, it's your job to have that data.
But let's get it right. This is their job.
Screw you, taxpayer!
Yeah, and the ironic part, you're right. Double screw you. You have to have a new one. A wheel's got to spin like twice, and it's got to be a double because, they make this like this. And I'm going back years that I made a presentation in front of the city council many years ago before they even televised it. It was on the radio. And I found $6.4 million missing in the budget. And they were going to lay people off. And I went in front of the council and made a presentation. And I remember the then council president, Dan Bogan, telling me, Mr. Camara, you don't understand the complexity of the city budget. This is a very complex thing. And my response to him was, well, I know that if I go into a market with $10 in my pocket and I spend $20, I don't have enough money. I said, all I'm telling you is that I look at this budget and I look at the expenditures and there's $6.4 million missing. I said, because the fire department was given $3.2 million in revenue sharing and the police were given $3.2 million. You put that in the fire department and we started with a $7 million budget. And if you add $7 million to the police and fire, that's a $10 million budget and a $10 million budget, 10.2. And I said, but after you put the $3 million in both departments, their budget's still $7 million, which means you removed $6 million of city money, and it's not anywhere else in the budget. So where did it go? And then the auditor and the treasurer looked at each other, and I still have the audio tape because you could hear him go, he's right. He's right.
Well,
and guess what? They never, ever... They didn't lay anybody off. They mysteriously found the money. This is not the way you run a city. You can't try to hide money and take money from other departments. These department heads should be held accountable for their budget and to work within their budget. That's what they get paid to do. Work within their budget. And if you don't put it in the budget and you come back 2 months after you appropriated the money, you tell them, well, you pay for it.
Yeah, well, and let's look at what this mayor's trying to do now, okay? He wants to take out of the hands of the people of Fall River the option to bond for the New Durfee High School. He doesn't want them to take a vote on it. He's just going to try to find some way to circumvent that by finding 51% of the money from the state. So again, this is the way the city's running. Deny the people their rights. Mike Mioza is trying to do it on the Charter Commission. The mayor's doing it on the 6th floor.
And the president of the city council didn't allow Jesus to speak.
That's right.
And I'm offended.
Yeah, and now, earlier in the day, actually late last evening, it was announced Project Exodus. Project Exodus is also known as Escape from Fall River. That's a tentative title. We're going to be replacing it. The plan is to obtain 2 to 3 minute video clips from people who have left Fall River and relocated to other communities, whether it be a mile away or 5,000 miles away. We want to know, when did you relocate? Why did you relocate? Job, family, schools, money, crime, all of that. Send us an email. We'll send you more information at exodus@southcoastmedia.org.
And the giant prize is we will never require you to come back to Fall River.
Exactly.
So stay angry because, boy, are they stealing your money.
Like they always do.
But remember, be genuine, not disingenuous.